All right. So, last week we reviewed, or maybe for some of y'all it was a review, for some of y'all it was new. We talked about the EKG paper. And let's just back up some and look at it really quickly. So your EKG graph paper leaves the machine at a constant 25 millimeters per second. On your horizontal line, that measures time. That'll measure rate. That'll measure length of contraction. Okay? On your vertical line, this is where we measure amplitude or voltage. So how strong the contraction. Remember, your paper is divided into squares, and then those squares are divided into even smaller squares. Your smallest squares are worth what in time? 0.04. So 0.04. Whereas your bigger squares are 5 of these, and that equals what? 0.20. It takes how many 0.20 blocks to make 1 second? 5. So if you count 5 0.20 blocks, that's going to give you 1 second. How many seconds did I tell you you need of a strip in order to interpret an ECG?
6.
At least 6. At least 6. That's what we're going to measure everything off of, alright? Because we'll be able to multiply that by 10 when we're looking at rate, and that'll give us 60, and so on and so forth. Alright? Well, let's see, what else can we tell you on that?
The little tick marks at the top.
Yep.
Those are 3, that's a 3-second interval, right?
That's right. So they're there for quick reference. So your little tiny tick marks at the top, in between one and the other is going to be 3 seconds. And so if you're looking at 1, then 1 in the middle, then 1 on the end, that's going to be your 6-second strip. Okay? It's going to be important. Okay. So let's start talking about some waveforms. You're going to base everything that you look at off of this little guy right here called the isoelectric line. The isoelectric line. Anything pointing upwards of the isoelectric line is positive. It's considered a positive deflection. Anything pointed negative or downward below the isoelectric line is considered a negative deflection. What does that mean? That means that when we're taking a look using ECG leads, any electrical current that is traveling towards the positive lead is up, and if that current travels away from the positive lead, it's down, it's negative. Will make a little more sense if you're not following me in a few minutes when we get into the leads, okay? So, what makes up a normal sinus rhythm? Well, we know that through the electrical system, you got your SA node, then you got your internodal pathways, you got your Bachman's bundle there over on the left side, then you got your AV node then goes down to your bundle of His, then you go your right and your left bundle branches, you got your fascicles and your Purkinje network there. What makes something called a sinus rhythm? That electrical impulse has that action potential, that squeeze has to begin in the SA node, and it has to travel along that pathway. Okay? So you've got a couple of visual representations here. Now, as we move forward, we talk about waveforms. One of the things that I told y'all last week that I do not want you to do in reference to learning this stuff is just learn what a rhythm looks like on a sheet of paper and not understand what exactly is going on in the heart with it. Okay? I want you to use the EKG rhythm as a roadmap to the geography of the heart. I know that's not the right term when we talk about anatomy, physiology, and all that, but I want you to use the waveform as a roadmap for the geography of the heart. Now, one of the things that we know that the ECG monitoring does is it tells us the electrical function of the heart, right? We know that it won't tell us the mechanical function. We have to do our own assessment. We have to check all the mechanical functions. But it will give us an electrical assessment of the heart. And every point on that ECG strip, that complex, gives us an indication of something going on in a particular area of the heart. The roadmap. Okay? So you've got, in a complete cardiac cycle, you got your P wave, you've got your QRS complex, and then you've got your T wave. So all of this represents the SA node all the way down to the Purkinje network. Your P wave. Your P wave, in order for you to have a upright, positively deflected, normal looking P wave, it needs to be started in the SA node. Sometimes you may have P waves from other atrial excitation that doesn't occur in the SA node, but it will have a distinct look. For right now, what we need to know is that the P wave normally is upright, smooth, rounded, and it's a positive deflection. So we need to know what normal is so that we can figure out what abnormal is, right? In lead 2, lead 2, lead 2. Everything that we're going to do until we get to 12 lead is going to be lead 2. Okay? So a normal length of a P wave is 0.10 seconds. So momentarily, you've got a very quick upward deflection, and it's 0. I didn't even touch it. Oh man. You literally have to just get close to it. Alright? So for a very quick point in time, the SA node fires, then we have an atrial excitation, atrial contraction. So it only takes, and remember, our mind can't fathom this time. It only takes 0.10 seconds in order for you to have an atrial contraction. 0.10 seconds. Not 1 second, 1. We've already had it. You get what I'm saying? So it's very quick. How would I measure 0.10? Well, I'm going to find the start of the P wave. We count how many blocks until the end, so it's 2.5 blocks. So that gives me what? 0.10, right? 0.04 plus 0.04 plus 0.02, because it's half of a block, gives you 0.10. Now, we're not going to do a whole lot of measuring of the P wave, but we are going to measure the PRI. Because it's more important for me to know how long it's taken this conduction to get from the SA node to the AV node. Alright? Your PR interval, also known as the PRI, that's going to be the time the impulse travels from the SA node to the internodal pathways in the atria towards the ventricles. So once you get to the end, that's this little part right here is what you would actually see as the impulse delayed AV junction. So we got our SA node, it fires, it goes down. We know the SA node, the intrinsic firing rate or the normal firing rate, pacing rate of the SA node is what? 60 to 100. So at 60 to 100 beats per minute, it's going to fire. Alright? Then we got the AV node. Now, what was that thing that we talked about last week that the AV node does when it gets that electrical stimulus? It holds it for a split second, so your atria can kick that other to allow for ventricular filling, right? So now, I forgot to mention this stuff right here. A lot of this is coming out of your Beasley book, the EKG book. So, and you can follow along on both of them because it's the same information. 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. All right. So we want to know the start of the P to the start of the Q. So that tells me several things. Well, the main thing it tells me is how long is it taking for that SA node impulse to go through the atria and to be held up at the AV node and then to be released into the ventricle. All right. So what we're actually looking at here, 0.12 to 0.20, we're looking at the length of time that impulse delay is at the AV junction. If we have anything greater than 0.20 for a PRI, then we know that the AV junction is holding that impulse longer than it needs to. Several implications for what could happen, but we're not getting into that right now. Okay? All right. So at this point, we've got the P wave. P wave was contracted by the impulse started in the SA node. In order for us to classify something as a sinus rhythm, it has to start in the sinoatrial node. 60 to 100 beats per minute, boom, is contracted, internodal pathway, Bobin's bundle, we've got our P wave. All right, it's come down. Remember, it's all traveling. Yeah, I'm not really worried about that. I really shouldn't have gotten that far into it earlier. But yeah, it's traveling at about a 60-degree axis. You're right, 59 degrees. But that will make sense in a few minutes, I hope. But now we're at the AV junction. So I've got my start of my P wave to right here, because what we're going to see now is right there is the start of the Q. Okay? So now the start of my P wave to the start of my Q. That tells me how long that impulse was held up at the AV node to get down to the ventricle. But now we've got the Q. The QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. So the P wave represented atrial depolarization. But for something to depolarize, it needs to repolarize too, right? Well, the atria does have atrial repolarization, but it's a very, very small amount of voltage or amplitude compared to what it takes to make the QRS actually depolarize. So you're not going to see atrial repolarization because it's going to get hidden and all this stuff. Okay? So your QRS complex, that is the ventricular depolarization. So this represents the conduction of impulse from the bundle of His through the ventricular muscle. Alright, so now, we started at the SA node. We've propagated an action potential. It has went off and it's going down through the atria, so we've created a P wave. Alright, we've continued down. Now we're at the AV node. The AV node is the gate. It holds me up for just a second. The AV node says, okay, you shall pass. So I'm now in the ventricles. Alright? What happens when this conduction goes through? As it goes through, it starts at the bundle of His, so it starts to go down, then it goes down, then it goes away, then it comes back. Meaning that that's where your negative and your positive waveforms are coming, because when we're looking at it in a lead 2, and I promise we'll get to lead 2 in just a little bit, you've got a series of times in which the electrical conduction goes towards and away from that lead in order to cause the ventricular contraction. Okay? It all builds on each other. So we got a P wave. We got a P wave. We got a PRI. We got our QRS. So you know what? We have made it through the whole squeeze. We made it through the squeeze. We made it through the atrial squeeze, and we made it through the ventricular squeeze. Then there's one more thing that we look at, and that's going to be, we'll come back to that. That's going to be the T wave. The T wave represents ventricular repolarization. So what was that line that we base everything negative and positive off of? Isoelectric line. Alright? So you got your P, you got your PRI, you got your QRS, then you got your ST segment to your T wave. Just alphabet. So your Q wave is your first downward reflection, or deflection, I'm sorry. You very rarely do you have in a normal sinus rhythm a Q wave of any measure. Alright? Very small, very small. Your R wave, your first upward deflection, so you got your Q, you got your R, then you got your S, which is your downward reflection after the R wave. So your QRS complex should measure 0.12 seconds. 0.08 to 0.12, somewhere in that area.
So 3 blocks.
3 blocks, 3 small blocks. You're getting it. Alright?
That's the QRS, right?
That's your QRS.
3 small blocks.
3 small blocks. Alright?
Yeah, that's the first downward. Till we get back flat.
Yep. Don't worry about as far as like time and stuff. Yeah, go and write it down so that you will have it in your mind when we reference it here in just a little bit. But we're going to go through the rules of what we need to do for each wave in order to measure. Okay? Right now, this is just telling you what your waves are. Alright? Then your ST segment, this is a time interval during which the ventricles are depolarized and repolarization of ventricles begin. Your ST segment. You need to go ahead and learn the ST segment, and it comes together at a point called the J point. Y'all see where the laser's at? The laser is right here. I don't have a steady hand.
Is that kind of the
Right there.
where
That's
it
called a
goes,
J point. What?
where it goes from being flat to the start of it going up?
Yep. Now, again, remember this. Your patients don't read the textbook. Sometimes you're not going to be able to. Sometimes none of this is going to even make sense. Sometimes you just have to chalk it up to what we call a FBL or FLB. You get dyslexic sometimes. FLB, a funky little beat because we can't figure out what the crap it is. Hey, sometimes even the physicians are like, what in the world? And sometimes we see stuff on a monitor that we think is like, hey, this is big time, big deal, and it's just something this patient lives with, and it's just kind of the way that their heart works. All right? For the most part, human anatomy and physiology, electrophysiology, works in predictable patterns. That's why we can come up with this. But you've got to learn what's normal so you can identify what's abnormal, and there's a lot of abnormal out there too. Alright? So your T wave is your resting phase of your cardiac cycle. The resting phase. Okay? T is where it goes back to repolarization, ventricular repolarization. Okay? So, P wave represents what? I did that on purpose. P wave represents atrial depolarization. Alright, your PRI starts at what? Well, you're measuring your PRI. So it starts at the P wave to the start of the Q wave. Alright? Now, how does that what is that? How does that tell me anything about the AV node? Right, because if I have a ventricular start of a ventricular complex, and that means that the AV node has allowed that contraction to go through. Correct. All right, then I've got the QRS complex, which is going to represent what? Depolarization. Then I've got the ST segment, which is the point between the S wave, the end of the S wave, and the beginning of the T wave, where they meet. All right, then I've got the T wave, which represents ventricular repolarization. Okay? All right. Let's see. We're going to, for just a few minutes, we're going to take a step off of waveforms, all that stuff, and we're going to talk about exactly what's the science behind monitoring. All right? And this is to hopefully help you understand what you're looking at when you look at a waveform. Okay? And it all has to do with the leads. Now, I think that y'all played with this or used this some. This is just a training. This is an iPad. This is not a real monitor. So I brought this up here more of a visual thing because I didn't feel like walking all the way around and getting the monitor. Glad it's a long way away from my office. But there's a couple of things that you need to understand about monitoring. You've got leads in a standard monitoring system. You've got 12 leads. Hence the name 12 lead ECG. 6 of those leads only require 6 of those lead views only require salt, pepper, and ketchup. Okay? That's going to be your standard limb leads and your augmented leads. Okay? Anybody ever looked at a 12 lead? You've got, on a 12 lead, you've got 4 rows of 3 leads. Your first 2 rows, or your first 6 leads, alright, that's going to be these leads. That's going to be lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, A, B, R, A, B, L, A, B, F. Alright? What makes 1, 2, 3 leads 1, 2, 3? What makes those bipolar leads? That means that you have a designated value putting the leads on positive and negative. Okay? When I'm using these 3 leads, in order to get a lead 1, 2, and 3, 2 of these leads are going to take that view, okay? One's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. You use 2 electrodes of opposite polarity, one pole being positive and one pole being negative to form a lead. You've got to have that negative to positive in order for you to get that view, okay? This records the difference in the electrical potential from the left arm, the right arm, and the left leg electrode. You've got your right arm, your salt, pepper, ketchup. Right? Why are they called limb leads? Because they're really designed to go on the limbs. We just do the torso out of convenience. But they are designed to go on the hands or the wrists and on the lower extremities. But here's the thing. You can't put them on the arms and put them on the gut. If you put them on the limb up here, you got to put them on the lower extremities as well in order for you to get a good read. All right. So one of the things that you're going to understand as we move forward is that a lot of times we have poor lead placement, and that leads to poor rhythm generation, all right, or poor monitoring, okay? So y'all are gonna have to excuse my poor drawing skills here, but what are the chances something happened? Boom! Hey, I think I can do it without screwing it up. All right. This is my person here. Now my race. Like, I'm really trying to use this because the school, well, you paid a lot of money for this system, and so just want you to erase. Golly, we'll be here all night. I cannot. It's like a little part that we don't want anymore. Okay, I just screw this.
Still on board. Got one stuff you want. Clouds are sticking out.
I don't need
I don't know, that wasn't me.
I just need. I don't care what happens here. All right. So this is what I'm trying to do. This ain't gonna be no better.
That works.
All right. This is the chest. Okay? This is the chest. Remember, whenever we're referencing a patient, we're referencing them from the normal anatomical position. So when we say the right, we're talking about the patient's right. Okay? So we've got our right arm lead, which is your salt.
Which is negative, correct? That always leads you.
Not yet.
Okay.
Don't.
Oh, man.
Taylor, slow that cart down a little bit. The horse is getting slow.
Oh, it's like a questions. Obviously the wrong one.
All right. So I need to make sure y'all know where to place these. All right. So there's our black, which is our left arm, our pepper. It could be, but let's. All right. And then here is our. Now, y'all are used to the monitors. Well, I think the hospital, they just have 3 leads. No, the hospital has 5 leads.
Well, they use the 3 leads for codes. But
Yeah.
the rest of the time they use for.
Well, they use for regular lead 2 monitoring, they use the 5 leads, but they have the rest.
Yes,
So. But anyways, you're used to the green lead as well. All right, so that this is a ground that provides a ground and all.
Wait, pause. So when you say 5 leads, you mean like rim leads, and then you have the lead for 1 and the 2?
When I say they use a 5 lead system, I mean they use 5 dots.
Gotcha.
That 5th lead is just for measuring respirations. Like that's how they measure respiration. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. All right. So lead 1, lead 2, lead 3. And I'm just trying to go a little bit slower with this just because I've taught it super fast in the past, and it took a while for folks to catch on and all that, so I'm trying to go a little bit slower. Your standard limb lead, right now we're not talking about anything else except for leads 1, 2, 3. They are bipolar leads. Bipolar leads means that they have to have a positive and negative. They've got to have opposing poles, all right? That's where these come in, okay? Your lead 1 records the difference in the electrical potential between the left arm and the right arm electrodes, all right? So for lead one, can y'all still imagine that this person has a neck and shoulders that are racing? All right, so for lead one, it records the difference in the electrical potential between the left arm and the right arm. Your left arm, patient's left arm, is positive. The right arm is negative, all right? So here's the thing that I need y'all to remember. We're always going to record from negative to positive, okay? From negative to positive. What? So if I were to put the monitor in the lead 1, that would be a setting that I would push. Hey, I want monitor you to read lead 1. I want to see a lead 1 strip. The monitor is going to say, okay, leads, left arm, you become negative or positive, right arm, you become negative. I want to take a picture of the electrical potential, the action potential going this way on the heart. So what I'm doing is I'm getting a recording of the electrical current as it flows this way. Another way to think of your positive lead, think of it as a camera. I'm always going to take a picture of the current with a positive, okay? The positive is the camera. So one of the ways that I remember is that if I'm running towards the camera, I'm going to get bigger in the lens of the camera. As I'm running away, I'm going to get smaller. And I think getting bigger is positive, getting smaller is negative. So as that current comes towards that positive lead, we're going to have a positive deflection. As it goes away, we're going to have a negative deflection. All right, lead 2 records the difference in electrical potential between the left leg and the right arm electrodes. All right? So what happens here? Your left leg in lead, so this is lead 1. In lead 2, your left leg is positive and your right arm is negative. So we're actually, remember, we're going to take a picture if we think the positive electrode is the camera. How's the current? So we're going down. We're going down. All right? Now, hold that thought. Let's just go to lead 3 because we're going to put it all together. Lead 3 records the difference in electrical potential between the left leg and the left arm. All right? So this is lead 2. Lead 3. Your positive is on your left leg and your negative is on your left arm. So how am I going to read that? I'm going to read it going this way, right? So what does this form? A triangle. This forms a triangle. Remember when I was talking earlier, I said axis? Just think of your axis is the direction, the collaborative, or I'm trying to think of what's the term that I use. The axis is all the electrical potentials together in one line, okay? So it's the sum of all the electrical potentials in one line. Your axis of lead 1 from your right arm to your left arm. Your axis of lead 2 is from your right arm to your left leg. Your axis of lead 3 is from your left arm to your left leg. Alright? Now, Einthoven's triangle, that's what that forms right there. Alright? So if I've got right arm, left leg, and actually, alright, if I were a patient and I were measuring Einthoven's triangle, leads 1, 2, 3. If you think of your heart right here, alright, essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the electrical axis in lead 1 from right to left, okay? What we're looking at is electrical axis in lead 2 from right arm to left leg. Alright, so think about how your heart sits in your chest. About a 60 degree when I'm going down. So if I'm measuring the current that is flowing from my right arm to my left leg lead, if I'm taking a picture, if I've got a little midget right here taking a picture of little person. If I've got somebody taking a picture down here, that's weird.
Not a boy or girl,
That's
just a
weird.
person.
That's weird. Anyways, if I'm getting a picture from here to here of the electrical current, what structures are along that way? SA node, AV node, bundle of hits, right? So the septum, right? The interventricular septum and my normal electrical pathway. What lead do we look at for our monitoring lead? Lead 2. Does that make sense? Is there one aha moment in this whole night? Is there one aha moment? Because I've been looking and there's been a lot of what the heck is he talking about? Alright? This ain't my first rodeo here. So if I were to do a lead 3 view, a lead 3 view is going to be more of the left side. Okay? Why would we need to do that? Well, we don't really for routine monitoring.
Still be taking a picture from the bottom.
Right, yep.
Okay.
So my current's flowing from here to here. Right? When I'm doing a lead 3, my current is flowing from here to here. I swap the switch and I say, hey, I want to do a lead 2. So now the monitor's going to say, hey, let me get a picture from here to here. I swap the switch, say, hey, I want to get a lead 1. So now it's going to say, okay, let me get a picture from here to here. Okay? Lead 1, lead 2, lead 3 collectively form Einthoven's triangle. Remember we talked about old Wilhelm Einthoven last week? The German guy?
Is that the pole? Which one was that? What was his?
He's the one that invented pretty much modern ECG monitoring. He's the one that took the magnet and looked through and saw the silver wire and all that stuff. Okay? So, here's lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, collectively form Einthoven's triangle. It's not really a triangle, though, is more of a...
Upside down, right?
Mm-mm. We will, but it's really more of a, whatever you want to call this guy right here. Okay? Hmm? What? Yeah, your augmented leads. Mhm. Alright. So really, what it's doing is it's measuring straight down the heart, then straight down the heart, and then straight across the heart. Alright. But for easier reference, we think of it more of a triangle. But I also want y'all to understand when I say this, because we're going to talk about the augmented leads here in just a few minutes, okay? Like right now. So, those leads that we just talked about, leads 1, 2, and 3, they are known as the limb leads. They are also known as bipolar leads. Because they have a distinct negative and positive, right? They place on them, these leads are a negative and positive. Your augmented leads are considered unipolar leads. What does that mean? They have no distinct negative pole. But I thought we had to measure from negative to positive. Well, what they do is they form a collective negative. The monitor does that for us. Alright? They have one electrode for a positive pole, and then they have to form a collective negative. They augment, or your augmented leads, why are they called augmented? Well, what? Augmented is actually a term that references what the monitor does to those leads. They augment those leads. So what they end up having to do is they have to amplify those leads because electrical conduction is so small that we can't hardly see it based off of the way that we look at them. Okay? And so when you hear the term augmented leads, what that means is that the monitor has to augment or increase the amplitude so that we can see it in a monitoring form. Okay? So your 3 augmented leads are your AVR, your AVL, and your AVF. Everybody said they've seen a 12 lead. The first 3 leads is leads 1, 2, 3. The second 3 leads is leads AVR, AVL, and AVF. Alright? Remember how I said that they are unipolar, meaning that they've got one distinct pole, and that's the positive. But we have to look from negative to positive. Well, they form a collective negative. The monitor does that for you. Alright? So AVR, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking, remember our camera was right there. Y'all aren't supposed to see that yet. Alright, our AVR, we're looking at your AVR, that's your axis there, your AVL, and then your AVF. Your big one is AVF because it's part of your inferior leads. So it's kind of showing what's happening in the inferior part of the heart. Alright, your AVL is actually a lateral lead. It's showing what's happening on the lateral aspect of the heart. Okay, but it's high lateral. Okay?
You said the ABL?
AVL is high lateral, whereas AVF is showing interior. Alright, so Remember how I said, hey, Einthoven's triangle is actually not really a triangle at all. More of this guy right here. Well, when you combine, hold on just a minute, it's kind of off center. When you combine AVR with positive is, you know, I'm not even close to that. Like, why did it do that? I miss the days of chalkboards. Alright, so when you combine AVR and you combine AVL, and then you combine AVF, you have what's called the hexaxial reference system. Oh my gosh. Look at her butt. That's my little girl's favorite part of the sentence. If y'all, y'all just don't have big shows. Saying, yeah, so what? It's a picture show. I paid a dime to go see it.
You do miss chalkboard.
I'm an old soul. Where I could go buy a soda. I'm just kidding. Alright. The hexaxial reference system. Oh my gosh, what the heck are we talking about? Don't know. Don't know, don't care. Holla. That's what I be saying. The hexaxial reference system. It combines your Einthoven's triangle, leads 1, 2, and 3, and AVR, AVL, AVF. What is hexagon? Hex.
In the night.
Your clever shall be ready to wait, dude.
It's gonna be his profile pic on Facebook.
I'll change it.
Alright. Your hexaxial, what is hex? 6. So your hexaxial, 6 leads.
I just got hex and 6. That's what I said. For.
Are y'all being serious here?
No.
In front of their face. I will not be that teacher that folks make fun of in front of their face and they don't understand. Alright, so hexaxial reference, 6. 6 leads. What are my first 3 leads? The ones that form Einthoven's triangle? Leads 1, 2, and 3. What are my other 3 leads? AVR, negative to positive, negative to positive, negative to positive. Alright, that's my 6. So each one of my lines represents a view of my leads.
So this, does that go through the 1, I mean not the 1, but the 3, 4, 5, and 6? Is that what that comes in?
Nope.
No.
Leads,
Oh Jesus.
don't,
No, but
yeah, don't worry about those. We're going to talk briefly about your chest leads, but then we're not going to see them again for a while, okay?
oh, okay.
Oh, is it the X down there with the little small picture?
I don't know. I don't like to hit X's. How about I just do this?
Picture of
How about that? How about that? I really need to use this little board right here. I really.
Okay, hit the X. Just try.
That's it. I'm just gonna turn it off. All right. I mean, yeah. I mean, Don't act surprised it's in your book. It's in your book. I mean, it's there. All right. So let's just start. Here's your hint. The first three lines that I'm going to draw are going to be leads 1, 2, and 3. So the line that goes this way, this side is negative and this side is positive, is what?
1.
Lead 1. All right. The line that goes this way, this is positive. Remember, I'm just doing these right now. This is negative, is what?
3.
So then that means that this must be lead 2. Okay? So there's my triaxial, my tread, 3 trace. After those, before posture, trace 3. Alright? So we've got that's positive and that's negative. Okay? Now my axes aren't perfect here, but y'all get where I'm going with that. Alright? So now I'm going from my negatives here and my positives here. I'll give you a hint. It's an augmented lead. So that would be A, B, R. Alright? Here to here. What? AB what? ABL. And here. Y'all can't see, but y'all just assume that it's going to be AB what? ABL. Alright? Put them together, you got lead 1, so that's 1 lead. Lead 2, that's 2 leads. Lead 3, that's 3 leads. AVR, that's 4 leads. AVL, that's 5 leads. AVF, that's 6 leads. That gives you your HEXAXIAL system.
Okay, that was what was confusing.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's still
So what happens is, alright, so we understand, we got the Einthoven'S triangle pretty good, right? Physically,
it's still 3 dots.
but we're only using 2 dots, right? We've got 3 on here, but physically, in lead 2, that one's negative and that one's positive. Lead 1, that one's negative and that one's positive. Lead 3, that one's negative, that one's positive, right? Alright, so for your augmented leads, the monitor has to create a common negative, which is going to usually be the center, well, it's the center of the heart. And so for AVR, it turns your right arm lead into the positive. Alright, for AVL, it turns your left lead. Alright?
Okay, so ADR taking a picture from the top, whereas lead 2 is taking a picture from the bottom?
Yep.
Okay.
Lead 2 is taking a picture of the current going this way.
Yep.
AVR is taking a picture going this way.
So that's where you get the positive and the negative.
Yes.
each way.
Yes.
Okay, now it makes sense. I was thinking,
I was waiting on us to put some more electrodes on something.
Yeah.
That's
that's why I was confused.
Nope, we're not going to put those other leads on for a few weeks, okay? Alright? Now, yeah, so,
It makes sense now.
alright, so
Just from different angles.
imagine this. Yes, from different angles, the monitor does a lot. We just tell it what to do and it figures out how to do it from there.
Yeah, it's not us doing anything else except
Other than put the
clicking
lead
a
on.
button.
Clicking a button, that's right. Now, look at this. Alright, so if I'm measuring from negative to positive, I'm taking a picture here. Alright, so this is going to be just a rough picture. Got my heart, got my 4 quadrants. Let's pretend I say no to that. Alright, and I'm taking a picture of the SA node to the AV node. Now down my interventricular, interseptum, and all that. Alright? So, if I'm taking a picture of lead 2, I'm sorry. I know y'all can't see. If I'm taking a picture in lead 2, we're looking at it as it's coming down. So initially,
You're looking for negative to positive,
yep, well no, you're looking from,
but positive.
It's looking back up.
right. But as that current is coming down, think about it, your first waveform is the SA, the P wave, right?
Yeah, you're a little bit.
So it's coming towards the positive electrode, so it's going to show up as what type of deflection on the marker. So,
Right, so as it gets closer, it's gonna get bigger, is that what you're saying too?
not yet, not with this, not with this, not with this. All right. All I need you to know is right now I'm looking at a lead 2. This is a lead 2. All right. As the current pops off in the SA node, it goes down. All right. As my atria is depolarizing, that electrical current is going towards the positive. So as it's going towards the positive, this line is just a reference. This is nothing other than saying, hey, look over here. All right. I'm going to have a P wave, which is going to be positive, right? All right. So there's the start of my P wave. That ain't the greatest here. All right. But then, for a very, very small, incomprehensible amount of time, there's not really a whole lot of electrical current going on because it's being held up at the AV node, which is going to give us this little section right here, right? Okay? So now, as it's going through the AV node, you have a little bit of what's called retrograde conduction, which means that it goes back just a little bit, which gives you your Q wave, which remember I said is usually pretty small, right? Alright, so as it goes away from the positive briefly, it's going to be negative, right? Alright, but then as boom, it starts coming down that bundle of His, and it's coming on towards the positive electrode, we're going to have our next positive deflection, which is your R wave, alright? Now, you're talking about the closer it gets, the bigger the deflection is. Now's the time when you can think about that because in reference to everything else, it is closer to that positive, right? So we've got that R wave. That R wave then turns into a S wave, and your S wave is your what? It's negative, right? So what's happening? It's actually going retrograde to get the rest of the ventricle, right? So that's why it shows as a rapid negative. Okay? Got it? Alright? And then it just kind of comes back again to the point to where now we're picking up repolarization. Alright, and that there's still a little bit of electrical current flowing with repolarization. Remember, it's the movement of the ions and all that. And so it's still going to be positive towards that. Alright, does that make sense? Make a little bit better sense?
Yes.
Well, the term lead kind of goes interchangeably with your sticky dots and with all that. What?
Like 6 pictures.
Yes,
3 leads, 6 pictures.
that's 100% correct. That's 100% correct. Because you are not you're not getting a view of the same section. It's from different sections. Okay? As a matter of fact, let me show y'all this. Here comes my guy, David, back out. Find it real quick. There's a good little illustration. Takes like an X and a left in there. Maybe it's not.
But you can like draw on PowerPoint for that?
is in this one. Yeah. You're right now. What?
Will it get profile?
Yeah. I don't know. Oh. Here it is. All right.
This is just a.
Oh,
All right. So let's say that we got this beautiful old car that we're gonna take a picture of. All right. We're getting ready to, I don't know, maybe sell it on Craigslist. All right. I don't know. I like to live on the edge.
I like it.
Last time I got kidnapped and beat, it was exhilarating. All right.
I don't know if I would call this.
All right. So I'm taking a picture of my car. All right. But in order for me to really get a good description of that car, I need to take it from 6 different angles. Right? So I need to get a picture of that car from the front, from the back to the front. Then I need to get a picture of that car from this angle, right? Then I need to get a picture of this car from this angle. Then I need to get a picture of the car from this angle, and all that. And that's essentially what we're doing here. We're getting a picture of the electrical conduction of the heart from 6 different angles. Right? Now, the only difference between these pictures of this car and the pictures on this reference system is that every one of these pictures would be useful in the description of that car for what we would need. All of these leads, although they give us a different angle of electrical conduction system in the heart, we don't really have to use them for just continuous on. Does that make sense? But when we get into 12 leads, you're going to be glad that we understood the AVRs and all that. AVL, AVF, and leads 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Don't even worry about those. Okay? Alright, so it's already been 2 hours. I'll never be able to take it off.
This one's free jail.
Alright, excellent. Alright, so when we talk about leads, leads are interchangeable with the sticky dots are called leads. Then our picture or our view is called leads. So let's just refer to the dots as sticky dots. And we'll refer to leads as leads with what we're looking at, okay? So if I say, hey, I'm looking at the leads, I'm not looking at the sticky dots. If I say, hey, I need you to put the sticky dots on, that means that I need you to put those on. Got it. Cool. For now, don't say sticky dots out in the hospital and stuff. But when we talk about leads, in our view of the leads, we've got our limb leads, our standard limb leads, which are bipolar leads. That's going to be leads what? 1, 2, and 3. Collectively, they form Einthoven's triangle. So let's just quickly review. Lead 1, my positive is going to be on my left shoulder. My negative is on my right shoulder. Lead 2, my negative is on my right shoulder. My positive is on my. And lead 3, my negative is on my left shoulder. And my positive is on my left leg. Alright? So those are my bipolar or limb leads. Then I've got my unipolar augmented leads. What does that mean? That means that we do not have dedicated two poles. The monitor actually creates a negative. And what else about augmented leads did I say? They actually have to be augmented in the monitor, meaning that the monitor has to increase amplitude in order for us to actually get a graphic representation of those leads, okay? So, our augmented leads, if we think of our negative coming from the center, our AVR, our positive would be on the right shoulder. Our AVF would be, positive would be left leg. And then our AVL would be left shoulder. Alright? And so with leads 1, 2, and 3, and then those 3 leads, those augmented leads, collectively they form the HEXAXIAL reference system. Alright, so now you've got 6 more leads that we're going to tell you about, and then we're not going to elaborate on them until we get to 12 leads. Alright? Precordial leads. Precordial leads. These are chest leads. They are unipolar leads. So they're all going to have a common negative. And they record the electrical activity of the heart on a horizontal plane. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the center of my heart is going to be my negative. Lead 1, I'm looking this way. Okay? They're projected through the anterior chest wall, through the AV node. They separate the body into upper and lower halves, providing a transverse, and horizontal plane. The electrodes on the chest are considered positive, but negatively they would be, or posteriorly they would be negative. That'll make more sense when we get to 12. Okay? Chest leads are your V1 through V6. Okay?
Just like with the augmented leads, they have a negative.
They've got a common negative. Yep. And so essentially what you're looking at here is, if you can, well, this is a better look here. This is actually somebody that face down, they're prone, y'all are looking down my head. Alright, yeah, I'm cutting half, so y'all will be looking at my upper half. If I lay this way, this would be more of my lower half here. Alright. No, actually that would be the upper half too. But each positive gives me a view. And what it does is, not only am I going to get with our precordial leads, our standard precordial leads, they're giving me a view of my left ventricular walls. Alright? So what is it going to give me? It's going to give me a release of the lateral, inferior, septal wall, and anterior. Alright? Leads, well, let's not do that. Okay? Have y'all went over 12 lead placement? Do y'all know how to place a 12 lead and all that? That's what I figured, but I have a responsibility in this class to make sure that y'all know that, but I trust Richard, so that's what he's, okay? Alright. I'm trying to get through the rest of this, then we'll take a longer break, and that way we can come back in and get to what we need to next, okay? You good with that? Okay. I don't have very much more on this, alright? So routine monitoring is going to be in lead 2. Why is it in lead 2? It shows, yep, it shows the main flow of electricity through the heart. Alright? Best lead to monitor dysrhythmias because they give us the best view of atrial depolarization as well. All right. So we got our P wave, we got our PRI segment, or your PRI, your PR interval. You've got your QRS complex. You've got your ST segment. Then you got your T wave. All right. So actually, we were a lot closer to being done with that than I